Today we'll discuss how to enable S3 logs using CLI. But before that, what is logging? Logging means to keep track of what are all the operations done on a service in a AWS account. But why keeping track of everything is so important? Because it is for security purpose, which helps to detect any unauthorized access. Logging helps in identifying any errors and failed operations in real time. Logging keeps a historical record of all the changes and operations that are performed on a service. Logging helps us to understand how any service is being used and how well they are performing. Now we have understood keeping track of all operations done, not only on bucket and its objects, on any AWS service, logging is super important. Now let's enable logs for S3. For this, I'll take you to my console. This is one of my bucket. Now I'll click this properties tab. Now I'll come down a bit. Server access logging. This is a place where we have to enable logging for S3. Now I'll click edit to open. I'll select this enable. Destination is also a bucket. We have to select a bucket to store all the logs of this bucket. You should not select a destination bucket as the same bucket because when you upload an object, logs for this object will be uploaded to this bucket. As logs are uploaded, logs for these logs will be uploaded in the same bucket. In this way, logs will be uploaded infinite times. So we have to choose another bucket as destination. So this is how you have to enable logging. Now I'll take you to my terminal to do the same using CLI. I have deleted this bucket. When I write AWS S3 ls, there are no buckets in my account. Now let's create two buckets, one for uploading objects and another for logs. What's next? Let's directly enable logging for this bucket. I'll write AWS S3 API and hit enter for the auto prompt. I'll write put bucket logging. And it was asking me to provide the bucket name. I'll write Korla Gautam and bucket logging status. Here I have to provide what was the destination bucket, what is the log file structure. We have seen in the console, right? All those settings we have to provide in this bucket logging status. I'll take you to my VS Code now. This is how a simple bucket logging JSON looks like. I have written my destination bucket is Korla Gautam log bucket and all the logs from the source bucket must be recorded in this logs folder. I'll write S and I'll save this file. I'll take you back to my terminal now. Now I'll write file : policy / in the policies folder we have this file bucket logging JSON. Okay, that's it. If I try to execute this command, this won't work. I'll type Ctrl+C to exit. Why if I execute this command this won't work? I mean when I change any setting in this Korla Gautam bucket, nothing will be recorded in that log bucket. But why? Can anyone guess? Think for 2 minutes. This S3 access logs doesn't have any permission on that log bucket to put the log files of that source bucket. So how do I give the permissions for the access logs on the log bucket to put the log files? Using bucket policy. I'll write AWS S3 API, put bucket policy. It was asking me to provide the bucket name. I'll write Korla Gautam log -- policy file : Now I'll take you to my VS Code. This is a bucket policy that we have to apply on the log bucket. Here we are allowing logging service to put the object on this log bucket. Sorry, I think this is my previous bucket policy. I'll quickly edit. I'll write Korla Gautam log /star, which means this logging service can upload any kind of object on this log bucket. And the access logs must be from this Korla Gautam bucket in this account. If you are still confused, I made a dedicated video on the bucket policies. Please have a look at it. Now I'll write file : policies / and this bucket policy JSON. When I hit enter, and this bucket policy was successfully applied to this log bucket. When you enable this S3 access logs using console, you don't need to manually attach this bucket policy. This bucket policy will be automatically attached to that log bucket. But you have to understand what was happening under the hood, right? And that's why you have to do everything using CLI. I have copied the above command and pasted here. I think by this time you might have forgot what is there in this bucket logging JSON file. I'll take you to my VS Code now. This is the bucket logging JSON file. We just mentioned the destination bucket and the prefix. I'll take you back to my terminal. I'll execute this command. Now logging was successfully applied to this Korla Gautam bucket. Now I'll write AWS S3 API and hit enter for the auto prompt. I'll write get bucket logging. It was asking me to provide the bucket name. I'll write Korla Gautam and that's it. I'll hit enter and look, logging was enabled. I'll take you to my console now. Look, there are two buckets. I'll click this Korla Gautam bucket. I'll now click this properties tab. I'll come down a bit. Look, the server access logging was enabled and the destination bucket is our log bucket. And look at this log object key format. Under this logs folder, our logs will be recorded. I'll now go back. Now I'll select this log bucket. I'll click this permissions tab. I'll come down a bit. Look, this policy was successfully applied to this bucket. Now I'll take you back to my terminal now. Now let's try to simply upload an object to the source bucket. I'll write ls. Let's upload this text.txt file. I'll write AWS S3 cp text.txt s3:/ and Korlagautam, the name of the source bucket. I'll hit enter. Now the object was successfully uploaded to the source bucket. Now I'll take you to my console. I'll go back to my buckets. I'll click this Korlagautam bucket. Look, there is a text.txt file. We have uploaded it just now, right? I'll go back to my buckets. I'll click this Korlagautam log bucket. There is nothing recorded in this log bucket. I'll hit refresh. Again, there is nothing. It takes time to generate logs. Okay, after some time, I can see some logs. When I click these logs, okay, there are many log files generated. But why these many? We did only one operation, right? We have just uploaded one object to the source bucket. But why these many logs? Okay, let's see what is there in these log files. In this log file, we have get logging status on this Korlagautam bucket on this date and time from this IP address. After enabling logging on this Korlagautam bucket, first operation we did is to get the logging status of this bucket, and that was recorded in this log bucket. Using CLI we have executed this command, right? And that's why this AWS CLI. Okay, now let's go back and take a look at what is there in this second log file. This is get versioning. I didn't perform this operation on this bucket, but why this was recorded? This operation was made using console. Okay, let's take a look at what is there in this third log file. Here it is, put object text.txt, and this operation was made using CLI. And this is correct, right? And what is there in the remaining log files? Let's go back and have a look at each of the files. There is something options pre-flight. This operation is also made using console. And there is one more operation, get object log configuration. This operation is also made using console. Okay, I understood. When you enable logging, every action is recorded. Even if you haven't performed any of these operations, when AWS loads the page, it makes some API calls to different settings under these properties and permissions, and these API calls are also recorded. Look here, these requests are made using console, not using CLI, right? So even if you refresh the page, AWS again makes the API calls to those settings, and those records will again be logged in this log bucket. Okay, now we have understood how to enable logs in S3. I'll come back, I'll click this buckets, I'll click this source bucket, I'll click properties tab, and I'll come down a little bit. Look at this event notification. I'll click this create event notification button. I'll come down a little bit. Look at these operations. Put, post, copy, multi-part upload completed, permanently deleted, delete marker created. Look here, all object create events, all object removal events, all restore object events. So using these event notifications, when any of these operations are performed on this bucket, you can choose what you want to do in this destination. You can run a Lambda function based on these S3 events. You can trigger an SNS topic or send notifications to SQS queue. So using this event notification, you will get notified when a specific operation was performed on this bucket. I want to leave this topic here itself. When we learn about Lambda, SNS and SQS, I'll continue this. I'll come back. I'll again click this properties tab. I'll come down a little bit. Look, there is something called event bridge. Using this event bridge, you can send these access logs to any third-party application to visualize these logs. Unlike this S3 event notifications, Event Bridge provides more flexibility in event filtering. We'll learn more about this Event Bridge in the future videos. Okay, now we have collected logs for a single bucket from a single account. But what if you want to collect the logs from all the accounts in your organization into a single bucket in a different account? One way is to enable S3 access logs in all the accounts in your organization and set the destination bucket as the bucket in the other account. And also update the bucket policy for the logging bucket. This process is a big headache, right? And that's why we have to use CloudTrail service now. What is CloudTrail? CloudTrail is a logging service. Just like access logs records every operation that was performed on a S3 bucket, CloudTrail service logs every operation that was performed on all the AWS services. For example, when you create any EC2 instance or terminate the instance or change any setting in any AWS services, these will be recorded in this CloudTrail service. CloudTrail records who did it, what they did, when and from where they performed any specific operation. Now we have understood what CloudTrail does. Now let's try to implement our use case. By default, this CloudTrail service is enabled, which records all the operations that are performed on this AWS account. Under this event history, CloudTrail logs all the operations performed. These are the operations that I performed in this account. If I click any one of the event, I can see who did it, when they did, what they did, and from where they did. There are two main types of events, management event and data events. Management events are the actions that are performed on a service, and data events are the actions that are performed on the data inside the service. For example, this put bucket policy, put bucket logging, create bucket or delete bucket, creating or terminating the EC2 instances. All these events are management events. And the events like uploading or downloading or deleting the objects inside the S3. And these events are data events. And the event history in the CloudTrail automatically records the management events for last 90 days, even if you haven't set up any CloudTrail. And you can set up one CloudTrail per region for free. And AWS records all these management events for free. And AWS charges you 8 rupees per 1 lakh data events when you want to record all the data events in the CloudTrail. This account is a child account and this account is a master account. Now what we have to do? Let's just create a bucket in the member account and let's record its logs in a bucket in this master account. For this, I have to enable a CloudTrail in this master account. Now I'll click Trails from the left side. I'll now click Create Trail. You have to disable this SSE KMS encryption if you don't want it to incur any additional charges. By default, S3 encrypts its objects using S3 managed keys. If you want to know more about S3 encryption, I already made a video. Please have a look at it. Here there is a small checkbox, enable for all accounts in my organization. You have to enable this checkbox. Then only member account logs will be recorded in this master account. Look, when I enabled this checkbox, organizational ID was added to this path. There is one more important point written above. A trail created in the console is a multi-region trail, which means trail created in this region can record logs of any service present in other region. Look, there is one more setting, log file validation. When this setting was enabled, a digest file will be created, which means when any log file in the log bucket was changed, using this digest file we can find out. I'll leave the rest of the settings as it is. I'll now click next. Here you can choose what events to record in the CloudTrail. Management events or data events or insight events. In this way, you can enable multi-region organizational level CloudTrail using console. Now I'll take you back to my terminal. I have already configured access keys of the master account and named the profile as me, which means if I execute any command using dash profile equal to me, it points to the master account. If I don't, it points to the member account. What's next? Now let's create a bucket so that the CloudTrail pushes the logs to this bucket. I'll write AWS S3 MB. Let's name this bucket as my organization log bucket. And I'll write dash profile equal to me, as I want my bucket to be created in the master account. When I hit enter, the bucket was successfully created. What's next? Let's directly jump into creating a CloudTrail. I'll write AWS CloudTrail and hit enter for the auto prompt. Next I'll write create trail. It was now asking me to provide the name of a trail. Let's name this as my organizational trail. Now it was asking me to provide the S3 bucket name. I'll copy the bucket name from above. I'll paste here. We want this trail to be a multi-region trail, right? And that's why I'll write dash is multi-region trail. And we also want this trail to be a organizational trail, right? And that's why I'll write dash is organizational trail. Finally, I'll write dash profile equal to me. When I hit enter, look, we got an error. Insufficient S3 bucket policy. When we want CloudTrail to update logs to S3, CloudTrail must have permissions to upload, right? We have already seen in the case of S3 logs, right? Now I'll take you to my VS Code. This is a bucket policy that we have to attach to the bucket. Let's go through this policy. This policy has 3 allow statements. First allow statement is, it allows CloudTrail service to get bucket ACL on this bucket. This is my previous bucket name. I'll quickly edit my org log bucket. So this allow statement allows only this CloudTrail service to get bucket ACL on this bucket. This permission is required because CloudTrail service verifies whether it has a required permissions to write logs to that S3 bucket. In the second allow statement, we are allowing CloudTrail service to put the object in this bucket and in this path. And the request has to come from this trail only. When you perform any operation in the master account, then this allow statement will be used. In the third allow statement, we are allowing CloudTrail service to put object in this bucket in this path. When you perform any operation in the member account, then this allow statement will be used. Okay, let's apply this policy. For that, I'll write AWS S3 API, put bucket policy, dash bucket. I'll copy the bucket name from above. I'll paste here. I'll hit enter for the auto prompt. I'll write dash policy, file colon slash policy slash. I'll select this CloudTrail bucket policy JSON file. And when I hit enter, there is some access denied error. Okay, I forgot to write profile equal to me. I'll repeat the same command. I'll add dash profile equal to me. And the bucket policy was successfully attached to the bucket in the master account. Now I'll repeat the same command, AWS CloudTrail. When I hit enter for the auto prompt, I'll select that create trail. Now it was asking me to provide the trail name. Write my org trail. This is the name that we wanted to put, right? This trail name should match with the trail name in the bucket policy. Now it was asking for bucket name. I'll write my org log bucket. I'll write this is an organizational trail and this is a multi-region trail. I want to enable log file validation as well, and that's why I'll select this dash dash enable log file validation. And finally dash dash profile equal to me. When I hit enter, the CloudTrail was successfully created. Now let's check what CloudTrail has stored in this bucket. I'll write AWS S3 ls and the bucket name my org log bucket dash dash recursive. When I hit enter, okay, there is something wrong with this. I forgot two things, to put S3 colon / before the bucket name and dash dash profile equal to me. When I hit enter, look, CloudTrail has stored these files in this my org log bucket. We have enabled log file validation, right? And that's why this CloudTrail digest file. I'll take you to my console now. This is a master account. I'll now click this log bucket. There is a folder called AWS logs. When I click that, there are two more folders. One for this master account and another for the organization. I'll click this organization. For now, we have a log from only this account. When I click this CloudTrail, there are no objects in this folder. After creating a CloudTrail using CLI, you have to manually enable logging. Without enabling logging, CloudTrail won't log anything. Now I'll take you back to my terminal. I'll write AWS CloudTrail and hit enter. I'll now write start logging to start the logging for my trail. It was now asking me to provide the trail name. I'll write my org trail. Yes, that's it. When I hit enter, again I forgot to put dash dash profile equal to me. When I repeat the same command, when I hit enter, now logging was enabled for my trail and CloudTrail logs everything. I mean management events. Now let's try to get the status of a trail, whether logging was enabled or not. I'll write AWS CloudTrail and hit enter for the auto prompt. I'll write get trail status, which means to get our CloudTrail status. Now it was asking me to provide the name. I'll write my org trail. When I hit enter, again I forgot to mention profile equal to me. I'll repeat the same command. I'll write dash dash profile equal to me. When I hit enter, look, logging was enabled. Now if I perform any operation in the member account, logs will be recorded in the master account. Okay, now let's try to create a bucket in the member account. I'll write AWS S3 MB. Let's name the bucket as logging bucket. When I hit enter, okay, I forgot S3 colon / before. When I hit enter, bucket was successfully created in the member account. Let's go ahead and see in the console. I'll click this my org log bucket. I'll click this AWS logs. I'll now click this organization ID. There is only one record, that too this is a master account ID. I'll hit refresh. I think it takes some time. After some time, I can see the member account ID over here. I'll click the member account ID and there are two files, CloudTrail Digest and CloudTrail. I'll click on the CloudTrail. I'll click this AP South 1 region and there is a folder called 2025. Observe this path. Inside 2025, there is 2. 2025 is year and this 2 is month. When I click 2, there is a folder called 16. When I click that 16, there is a log file. That 2025 to 16 is, this log file was created on 16th February 2025. I'll click open. These are the logs. These logs contain who did it, when they did, what they did, and from where they did. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. In the next video, we'll look at S3 storage classes and lifecycle management. See you in the next video.